I just want to start with just a bit of background. You know, how did this all happen? What was your background, and how did you end up with Content London?
Okay, not going too far back. I went to university in America, and after graduating, I came back to England and started working in a trade magazine. That was almost 30 years ago, and that was just before the internet started. And myself and a friend realized how important the internet was going to be. So we begged, borrowed, and stole and started our company, C21, in 1997. C21 is a publishing company. It started off as like a magazine company. We published titles monthly. We were the first company to actually, TV company to actually have a website, to work on the internet, to send out a newsletter. We had about like 25 subscribers, but we grew because back then, people got their news monthly or weekly, but we were the first to actually give people within the TV B2B industry their news straight away, you know, as it happened. So we kind of grew from there, but at the same time, we also put on events. We put on like these little markets. We'd have like 20 people attend, but we always tried to be ahead of the curve because we were quite young at the time, and we kind of like could make decisions without having to go through anyone. It was just two of us that made the decisions. And Content London really started about 15 years ago when the whole business just cared about reality. That was when Big Brother started in Europe, Survivor, you know, all those kind of reality shows. And drama wasn't looked at the time. Then Netflix came around, and Netflix did House of Cards. You had these big, expensive TV shows that were happening. And we realized there were no markets covering that. So we thought, you know what, you've got Netflix, you've got Amazon, you've got these big streamers, you've got big movie stars doing television. Why don't we just get a gathering where we could talk about it? And that's how we started with C20, with Content London. In fact, it started off being called the Drama Summit. Our first year, we had about 100 people, but we had the top decision makers from Netflix who'd never been out before talking about what they wanted. We had people from Sky, HBO, they all came to London. And I thank the power of Twitter because people were tweeting from this event about how great this was going, and people were actually talking about what was going on in the industry. So on the back of that, the second year, we had 300 people, and we had to move. The third year, we had 700 people move to a venue. So we moved venues about 3 or 4 times. But it was all about, people liked it because that was where you could actually get deals done, talk about what was going on in the industry. You know, you get commissioners, you get writers, you get producers actually sitting in a really safe environment talking about what they wanted and what was going on, and things happened quickly. So from there, it escalated to where we are right now. So we started looking at other genres. Well, we started with drama primarily, and from there we've got unscripted, we have kids. It's evolved to, we try and not just have an event, but we want people to get something from it. So we had our first AI event 18 months ago, where, I don't know whether you're familiar with Sora, but if you're familiar with Sora, Sora was premiered there. We're doing things like, you know, the vertical markets, micro dramas and so forth. So people know that when they come to Content London, they're going to learn and get information. You have the opportunity to rub shoulders with people that you never would be. We do things like speed networking, where it doesn't matter how important you are, but if you're coming to Content London to speak, you've got to give an hour of your time to actually sit in a room and meet young producers and so forth. So it's just evolved from there.
No, for sure. I mean, it's and how many, just give them an idea now. You've got Content London, how many other cities do you have?
Okay, I think I've got a clip. I don't know whether it's got all of them. So basically, we have Content Americas, which is for the Latino market, that goes on in Miami. We have Content India, which we launched this year for, that takes place in Mumbai, because there's a huge opportunity in India. I think India is a market that we should be mirroring and following in Nigeria because it's amazing. We have Content Warsaw, which is for CEE. We have Content Europe, which is basically it's replacing the market called MIP TV, but it's for the entire world as well. And that's primarily more of a buyer and seller market. We have Content Canada, which takes place during TIFF. And yeah, I think that's it.
So far, then there'll soon be Content Africa. We're talking about that. It's coming, it's coming. I think
We did, in fact, actually, sorry to jump in, we did launch Content Nigeria about 7 years ago, but we started off as it being a website to kind of build interest, because you just don't go into these territories unless you know it's gonna work. And putting on these events, I'm sure as you know, cost quite a lot of money. So we started Content Nigeria about 7 years ago as a newsletter, a website with news, just to try and garner some interest. But
no, for sure. I know it takes a lot to put.
Yeah.
Don't I know it?
Yeah.
We're in the middle of Entertainment Week Africa. But the reason I wanted to have this fireside chat with Odiri is because I believe he's the perfect person to talk about how African and diaspora stories go from idea to global stage, and what's happening with Hollywood now, and how our stories can plug into the pipeline, right? So I know you and Enyi, as well as Content London, you have not just a production company, you also have a talent agency. So talk to me a little bit about that and how that's evolved.
yeah, so about 5-6 years ago, just through my access to the industry and my passion for TV, I always knew I wanted to have a production company. I'm very fortunate to have access to quite a few people that can, you can talk to, whether they're writers, producers, commissioners, financial people. So my family, just a little bit of background, although we were born in England, we moved over to Nigeria when I was quite young, grew up here. And that's where I guess my passion for TV started, because not to age myself, back in the day when it was like NTA and stuff like that, you watched everything. You watched, you weren't discerning, and that's where the passion grew. And my sister decided she wanted to be a writer, although she never told any of us about it. And my brother decided he wanted to be an actor. Again, he never told anyone about it until later on. And fast forward to about 15, 20 years ago, my brother became an actor. He had to go, obviously, to university to fulfill my parents' dreams. But after while at university, he took up acting. And my sister as well, and she took up writing. So we decided to form a production company called Tudor House Productions. And that's like a combination of my dad's name and my mom's name. And it was just basically our frustration at not seeing our kind of stories shown prime time on television internationally. And our whole idea was to use my brother as an actor to get shows commissioned as he became more famous, and my sister writing and running writers' rooms and so forth. And from there, we realized, again, coming to a conference here, called, I want to say it was run by the government, meeting a couple of writers and realizing that how much talent we have here, but they're not represented, and when they get their stuff done, they more or less exploited. We just decided to, as well as having a production company, form an agency along with Enyi to kind of like find African talent that we can work with and we can help place internationally, and use some of their content to try and get them made, or just kind of give them exposure. And we've been quite successful with placing some of our writers internationally as well as working with us. Well, that's where we stand.
No, right. No, that's so with that, and from your vantage point, right, when you look at what's changing in Hollywood, can you just talk a little bit about how Hollywood looks at international and African diaspora stories, how that's changed in the last 5 to 10 years?
It's definitely changing, because before it wasn't considered, but there's certain projects going on right now which I cannot really talk about, but I'm sure most of you know about, that are coming, and that wouldn't have happened 5 years ago, because basically they don't feel there's money in African shows. Some of the things that people have said to me when, for example, some of the projects that we work on, I've got a great relationship with a publishing company with a hoster there, who obviously sends me manuscripts from new shows, from new books or books that are published and so forth. In fact, sitting next to him is Udwak there, whose book was our first book that we optioned, and a great story called Imposter Alert, if you haven't read it. And we optioned the book, we adapted it, we took it to the international market. The international market loved it, absolutely loved it. But it's been a battle because because they're going like, it's a Nigerian story or it's an African story, there are too many black faces there. So unless you've got a big name star, it doesn't. So it's a matter of right now is how to kind of like get stories that are not, to start off with that can travel. And I think they travel when you've got a mix of African and international stories across.
No, sure. I think that leads me to, if you've been in these rooms with buyers, or when a buyer at Content LA, Content London says they want global diverse stories, right? What are they really asking? In your real opinion,
they want the Nigerian Squid Games, basically. That's what they want.
What do you think? So I mean, to me, that's easy to say.
Yeah, but listen. They say what they think they need to say and what has to be said, and they're genuinely looking for African stories. They genuinely want something to come out. They genuinely want to break out. Hence, all these few shows that are coming down the pipeline will happen, but they've had a hard time finding the quality they want, stuff that will work. It all goes down to sales. I mean, I've sat with people who have said, I love this show, I love what you've done, we want to do it, but we need to put it through our sales team who will forecast what they're going to get to see whether they get the money back, and obviously that always comes back shorter than what they...
And do you think, I think we're leaving a lot of money on the table in terms of diaspora IP, so how do we, I guess, close that gap in a sense?
I think a lot of it is to do with quality, collaborating with people, finding people who have done stuff, and trying to collaborate with people who have genuine interest. There are a lot of people out there who really do genuinely want to find stuff from here, because it's really, as a result of the pandemic, as a result of the writers' strike that happened in LA, you can all see what's going on in the economy. You can just see what's happening with all these companies internationally. The money's not there for them to make $10 million an episode shows or $20 million an episode shows. There's like 2 or 3 companies that can still do that. So they're looking for cheaper outlets but that can still sell. So I just think it's just perseverance, partnering with people, coming to things like this, networking, keeping informed about what's going on in the industry, watching what's out there. And we just have to work a lot harder on whatever we're making over here. And whether it's down to more development, taking time, not rushing stuff, working on storyline. I'm saying they're not necessarily over, they just kind of slow down a bit. And that's because of the pandemic, the writers' strike, the economy, money not being there where everyone was going crazy buying this. I mean, throwing money at shows and so forth. But now with some of these platforms or companies being taken over, it's just kind of slowed down a bit. But it's still a very competitive environment. You see any given day, you see how many new shows are coming out on your Netflix. You've got your Apple, you've got your Max, you've got, if anything, they're just renaming themselves. HBO's call themselves HBO Max, whatever. It's still the same thing. There's a lot of stuff is being done, but it's being done more conservatively, and they're going to territories, like for stuff that you'd never think before that. For example, Warsaw had some of the biggest shows that on Netflix over the last year, and it's all making local shows, but making quality shows. You've got stuff that's coming out of India, remakes of some successful Netflix shows. You've got so many, they're just looking at smarter ways of making shows without throwing ridiculous amount of money at it. That's the whole thing. I don't think the streaming wars are over. I just think they just kind of like slow down a bit, but it's still happening. They have to create content. They have to, they've got to feed the pipeline. So it's not stopping anytime soon. It's just finding interesting ways of doing it and cost-effective ways of doing it, going to different hubs and so forth.
It's not a level playing field yet, but what do you think, what are the most common mistakes African or diaspora creators make when they approach a big market like Content London?
Not being prepared. Yeah,
Sorry, say that again, please.
Not being prepared.
Right.
You've got to, and I'm not saying it because it's my event, but some of you have attended, like I've been to the event and you can see, and it's such a great opportunity for you to meet people that can actually make your stuff happen. And again, is first of all, those that bother to attend, I know it's not cheap getting there, but when you get there, make use of it, research the companies, identify who you're going to be meeting, and just take advantage of it. You're in a space with about 3,000 of the most creative individuals in the world, and you're right there. And it's not a matter, you can approach them. We do, whether it's networking parties, whether it's, pitch sessions. We have something we do at Content London is the pitch competition, and that's where we open it out to people to enter their pitches to everyone worldwide. And those pitches are looked at, and the final 8 are brought to the conference to pitch in front of commissioners. And quite a few shows have been made on the back of that. You know what I mean? So it's like, you bump into people in the corridor and you talk about what they generally want to know what you're doing. And it's just a great opportunity. And not just my market, but if you're going to any other international market, whether it's Cannes or TIFF, just to make sure you're not there for just the sake of it, but you do your research and be prepared.
Yeah, and have your elevator pitch ready.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes you only have 30 seconds, 20 seconds of these things to meet the right people. But for the talent and producers here right now, for you guys at Tudor, what would you kind of say are 3 non-negotiables?
Pardon?
For talent and producers that are here today, what would be the 3 non-negotiables you look for before you even consider a project?
Like original, doing an original story, doing original, make sure you've done, you're preparing, because not just for me at Tudor, but I just know that all these people that you're trying to sell to get loads and loads of pictures and stuff sent to them. So it's make sure whatever, whether it's your deck, whether it's your 1 paragraph, whether it's your story, you only get 1 chance, and you've got to make sure that that pitch is solid as hell. And also make it, I think it's being original, and I think for us Nigerians and for us Africans, stories are not hard. As someone said, just leaving your house to get to work is a story here in Lagos. You know what I mean? We've just got such great stories to tell. And that, for me, I've found that from the books. I've optioned a couple of books, Nigerian books, and worked on them and adapted them. I've worked on some Nigerian pitches, and to be honest with you, none of them have ever been turned down. And it's all like people going like, we love this, we love the world, we love what you've created. And it's because we spent the time to actually build a story, build the characters, the story arc, and so forth, and not rush it. And I think that's one of our problems. We rush because we just want to get things out as soon as possible. But once you realize that you've just got that 1 chance to get it in front of those people, and if you bring them stuff that's not good, they won't look at you again. So
yeah. And development takes time. Development is not an overnight thing. So I think our people need to. Well, I think in general, you just need to spend more time developing the actual project before you actually try and sit in front of a producer or manager or whatever. But I think that leads me to, so can you walk us through a scenario where you've optioned a book or script, the story of how that traveled from the option to actually taking it to...
Okay, yeah, I can give a second. There's one here. So basically, Enyi, who I run Tudor MMC with, which is our agency, and Enyi's like our eyes on the ground here and in Africa and so forth. And Enyi told me about a book that he thought was very interesting that we should look at. To be quite honest, at first I was going, really, I've not heard of the book. And I got the book. It was called, as I said, it was called Imposter Alert, and it had done well, and in Nigeria. And again, I met the writer and the publisher, and this was after I read the book. And I read the book, and to be quite honest, I loved the book. But as I was reading the book, I was going, okay, this is a great story, but I can't use all of it to sell internationally, because my whole idea was, as I was reading, I was going, this is like, I'm sure you guys know Ugly Betty. I go, this is a story that's universal, that if you do it properly, this story can take place anywhere in the world. So I optioned the book. I made an offer. to the writer through the publisher. And my whole thing about when I'm optioning books, I don't do all this. I don't have the money to pay the 7 figures that Shimada gets and all that stuff. I go, that just doesn't work for me. But my story is that we'll give you enough money and come along with us on the journey, because if your book gets made, if it gets made, you get bumper bonuses. So we're on the journey, because I don't know whether you guys know, like for example, Stephen King options all his books for $1. Yeah, but he gets, when it's made, that's where the money comes from. So we optioned the book. Then what I did was I got together a writer's room with my sister and a couple of our writers that we represent, because this was going to be our first thing. And I said, okay, this is the book, read the book. Let's take what we're going to use out of it and make our own version of it, in mind that we want this to work both locally and internationally. And which we did. We had 3 writers and my sister, and we spent a good, I'd say, 3 months putting together a pitch deck, which was our story, the characters, where it would go, and so forth. And when it took us 3 months, but on the back of that, the day I sent it out, so I picked 3 people to send it out to. One was Canal Plus, the other was AMC, and the other was Fremantle. And I sent it out one day, and by the end of that day, I got an offer from Canal Plus, and the next day from AMC. And that was simply because what we put together in the story, they could see the potential. And then from there, we went with Canal Plus, where they more or less gave us money to, okay, they wanted to come on board, they would say they want to commission it, and they gave us money to write all 8 episodes. Now, compared to Europe and the rest of the world, it was not, you couldn't do that. But I believed in the project myself, so we kind of put in ourselves personally, our company, more money to make sure it was up to level, because if you worked with the money they gave you, it couldn't travel. So just give it a kind of an idea, we spent a year writing those 8 episodes, and that was going back and forth until we felt it was good enough. And then from that, we took it to them, and they said, great, the commissioner, they gave us an offer, and they said, okay, we're going to give you this amount of money to make this show. But the amount of money they gave us was the sort of money they give to make local shows here. And I was going, what's the point of doing that? I want to elevate this show to a point where I know it can sit on a platform anywhere in the world. And I started using, connections to get, known faces that will help sell it, and known directors and so on. And it was everything was going right. The show was on track to be made, apart from there was a bit of a setback with one of the showrunners who more or less put a span in the works. So we had to go right back to the drawing board. But we got offers, on the back of that, we got offers from big companies, Fremantle, we got offers from Leonine, Media One, which was not a lot of money for me at the time, but compared to anything else, it would work. And myself and Annie, we spoke about this. I wasn't going to settle for the amount of money that was being offered. Now, I'm sure other producers would have, but when you think about what you want to portray and show, I believed in the show. And so just to fast forward where we are right now, we are about to sign an offer with these same people who want to, the English version is more expensive, but what they want to do right now is make a Francophone version for Africa. And on the back of that, we've been offered more to make the English version, and so forth and so forth and so forth. So you have to be able to move so many different parts, be creative, stand your ground, and just not take the money for the sake of it.
No, for sure. I definitely know the packaging journey and how much effort it takes to get anything to be greenlit. So, but I want to quickly move on to this idea about bridging the gap, and you hear it all the time. How can we bridge the gap between Hollywood and the more I look at what's happening globally, the more I realize that, maybe even Hollywood doesn't think Hollywood is the place to be anymore, if we have been totally honest. But if you were looking, if you were designing the perfect Africa diaspora pipeline from scratch, what would that look like?
I guess it's to be realistic. It can't just be Africa. It's got to have a Western side to it as well. You understand? And that's where, I really. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's going to be very hard for us to just get a purely African show that's going to kick down doors in Hollywood as it is right now. We've not seen it happen. There've been many. They've tried. I mean, like, we had, Half Yellow Sun. We've had shows that have done all right. We've had like, like for example, give you an example. The TV series that Mo here did, Baby Farm. That was a great show. That was, for me, that was one of the best shows that I've seen come out from here. And I was working with Mo to help get an international distributor for it. And even though we're offering them this show, which, I say purely the acting, the writing, the storyline was higher than what I've seen from here, it was still a struggle to get someone who was saying, okay, I'm going to take it and sell it for you. So the way I'm looking at it right now and the way we're working on it is finding stories that take place in multiple locations. For example, again, Ahosa got me this book called Truth is a Flightless Bird, and it's an epic book. It takes place in Nairobi. In the book, it takes place in Nairobi, Canada, if I'm correct, Nairobi and Canada. I'm not sure if anything in America, but anyway, I took the book and I've adapted it, and how it's working right now, there's genuine interest from various parties because we've kind of like done a kind of a mix. The story takes place in Nairobi, but also takes place, there's enough of it in America, the way we've done it, that there's genuine interest. It's kind of like easing them into Africa. It's a way of like easing them in, as opposed to, going full.
So let me ask, so there's two shows that come to mind. Chuck Law, one of the biggest TV producers, I guess, with his power behind it. But are we saying that, I know you're not saying that, but I think without a power mover behind the African story, are we saying that it's difficult to make these things happen?
I think it's not impossible, but it's difficult. It really is. I mean, I'm thinking about, again, it's not all doom and gloom because there's some really cool things coming down, and which are going to be adapting this model of spending more time developing, spending more time, locations and cast and so forth, which will make a difference. I was just speaking about this earlier. It's like I can't understand how there's some shows that are doing well internationally from India, and I'm watching them, and they're just so good. I don't recognize any of the power hitters in them. It was just a storyline. Like I don't know what you've seen, like Delhi Crime just dropped on Netflix, the 3rd season. I mean, that's so good. I mean, we need to. But when you watch that, you can see that there's been a lot of time developing the story. Thinking about the story arc, the characters. There are no holes in the story. You can't go, oh, that doesn't make sense. But and I think we're not far off because we have the stories, we have the, being Nigerians, there's nothing we can't do if we put our minds to it and doing it better, than most. So it's just, but I guess it's hard. We need more funding. And stuff that can give people the time to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to spend a year developing something, not going, I want to get something out quickly so I can get the next one, I can get the next one, get one. But once we're able to do that, spend the time developing the story, thinking about it, doing a proper writer's room, that's not a week, but more like months.
So, yeah, saying that, so where do you think the biggest, you hear the buzzwords, that the issues of distribution, financing, packaging. So where do you think the biggest opportunities are for us here? Is it in terms of co-productions, the treaties, is it government? Where do you think we should focus?
I think we should, if we can focus on seriously getting that kind of rebate system, tax. I can't tell you how many shows that have wanted to, with Nigerian stories or wanted to take place in Nigeria, but did not, because maybe you've got, whatever in South Africa. I mean, you just look at the landscape we've got here. It's just unbelievable. You can shoot any location if you want here. And it's that whole thing about making people realize what a great thing it is to shoot in Nigeria. And again, just not in Lagos. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's some brilliant places outside Lagos. But there's just so many great opportunities. But I think it all starts with like what the incentives is like. Okay, and again, people have come on and shot here, like this movie that came out, Son of the Soil. So, for example, which is like, and it was I remember the producer calling me in England. She's an American living in London, going like, I want to go shoot in Nigeria. I was going like, well done. Why? But they came over and they're very happy with what they've seen, the cost. So,
and just to touch on Son of the Soil, that's screening later today, and that is an interesting example because the director's British Chinese.
Yeah.
They've never done anything in Nigeria, but yet they did it. I'm saying that to say the question, I mean, we're developing films right now, and the question that keeps coming is, can you shoot in SA? No, I can't do exteriors in SA. But okay, I tell you what, for me to give you the financing, can you do some of the interiors in a place where I can get a rebate? So you're considering having to shoot interiors in the Canaries, in Malta, in parts of the Caribbean, simply because there's rebates available. There's no rebates available here. So why should a finance studio finance your project? So that's one of the challenges that we have here. So you're at Entertainment Week Africa. Mm-hmm. It's a big festival. This is the 4th year. But for cities and festivals like us, for cities like Lagos, Accra, Nairobi, Joburg, Cape Town, what can we learn from Content London? And how, in terms of how to plug into such an event?
I mean, it's good to come to Content. I mean, as an organizer or as a producer,
let's take it from an organizer's perspective.
As an organizer, I think, for example, this Entertainment Week. I mean, Week Africa.
I badgered him to come. I begged him.
No, it's like it's getting. I mean, this is, first of all, it doesn't cost anything to come to this, does it? And there should be more people here attending this conference. You know what I mean? It should be more people here. I don't know whether it's more like when you're doing a conference, it's a bit difficult because you're doing so many different things in one week. So you're covering fashion, music, cinema, and all that. It's a big one. I mean, they do the same thing in South Africa. I've gone a couple of times for Fame Week, but the TV side is quite solid. I think it's more about having when you're doing a conference, is having a story about what that conference is about. I mean, why should I come to Entertainment Week Africa? You know, if I'm a producer, why should I be here? It's a story about you're going to get something. What are you? You know, like, for example, we always have a tagline at our Content London events, like the next generation economy or something of that nature. Like, I always have something that people feel they're going to get out of. So you're coming to Content London this year. Apart from the usual commissioning and buying and producing and so forth, we're looking at trends, yeah? And the trends right now, everyone's gone on about it, the micro dramas, which is perfect for Nigeria. It is insanely perfect. It costs nothing, and you can make so much money from doing it, as opposed to thinking about, okay, I'm going to go make a big expensive series, or I'm going to go make a movie. You can shoot these short clips and release them, and people are printing money with it. So that's what we're showing at our conference as well. Yeah. So it's feeling about, how do I do that? Sure. Who do I meet, you know?
No, I guarantee you, those micro dramas are coming in Nigeria. Brace yourselves. I've heard stories of production houses working on stuff. One myth about Hollywood you'd like the diaspora to drop.
To drop?
Yeah. Don't be shy. Yeah. We can edit the...
When they say we love your show, okay. There's a lot of FOMO there, you know, and you know it's I don't know whether it's a myth to drop, but it's just my experience I've had is like people saying yeah, you know, and you get excited and it's not always what you think,
and then nothing happens.
Yeah.
Yes, we've been there. One thing African and diaspora talent already does better than Hollywood. I think this is a good one.
Working, the hard work, the graft.
Yeah, we definitely.
It just needs to be applied.
You only need to go on a YouTube film set in Nigeria. You'll understand how hard these guys work. What's the most underrated market or territory people should be watching?
India.
I'll add Nigeria to that as well. But
We're getting there.
India, definitely.
Yeah. Because there are opportunities for us in that region as well. You know, there's stories. So also one thing I also do is where we get our projects from, and not just stuff we create or stuff we option. We look at stories that have worked internationally or have worked in the territory.
Mm-hmm.
So, like for example, one of our shows, I don't know where you saw that one, is called No Matter What. Now that show, we optioned it. It's based on a very successful television show from Croatia. And it's just like, you know, finding something that's universal. And I think why I'm harping on about India is because I've been there a couple of times this year for our Content India event and meeting Indian producers. And I just think we've got so much we could learn from there as well as collaborate there. And we're very, very similar, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Storytelling.
Okay, a book, show, or film you wish you had backed first?
I don't think there's one as of yet.
Wow.
Book, show, I would have backed first. I would say show. I would say my favorite show, which is obviously Breaking Bad, but you know,
that's a big
books,
show.
Yeah.
That's a big show. And the last one. Finish this sentence. The future of global content is
evolving.
I'm gonna wrap this with one last question. So, with everything you're building, Content London, the content world, Judah. If anyone that's here or outside of it wants to plug in, what's the smartest way to start that relationship?
With me or with Judah or with the business?
Everything you're doing.
Everything I'm doing. Just drop me a line to start off with. I'm very happy to talk. I'm very happy. Myself, Amy, my sister and brother. It's all about, our whole thing is about building Nigeria, building the region, getting our faces out there, and you know, wanting to make it work. Because when you look at it right now, the Nigerians doing well across everything. You watch the NFL. I mean, I remember when there was only one Nigerian player, Christian Okoye. Now the names are across all the backs. You watch NBA, same thing. You know, look at how many successful Nigerian, whether it's athletes or people in politics internationally in the UN, or you know, acting and so forth. So it's just to try and get us out there. I mean, so the easiest way is to drop us a line, whether it's at Chudo MMC or chudo.com or so forth, or check out the website. You can get to us through there. With our content events, again, you go on contentlondon.net or email me as well. I can put you in the link. I mean, we've got some very exciting things coming along. And, you know, as I say, we can't neglect the region, which we want to do, but these things cost, as you know. We'd love to be doing something out here, but it's got to make sense and got to make sure it's going to work. So I'm very accessible. So it's not like I turn people away or anything like that.
For sure. And that being said, Odiri, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
I'll see you at Content London for sure. And good luck with it. And it's going to be another amazing year and event. I want to thank you guys for taking the time out to come and, join us with this fireside chat. And hopefully we'll get to see you guys next year at Content London or wherever else. But please feel free to stick around and network. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.